a very a philosopher who actually saw things in a very much interdisciplinary way. He was discussing environment, he was discussing state, nation, education, colonialism, and what should we do. He was the first one, actually, though not very much read, still, even among Indians, that the first one is critique of colonization of knowledge and introducing coloniality, decoloniality rather. He was the one who wrote a 2-page article, Parrots Theory. It's a 2-page article, it's translated in 12 languages. So I would request everybody to read that one and see what he said. He criticized 1835's Macaulay's Minutes, Minutes on Education, and wrote beautifully that particular article, and then later on, of course, on that, to show that actually British is colonizing not only the country, but the knowledge also. And also telling us that we did not have a truthful past. And most of the European philosophers, European thinkers, among them is Karl Marx and Hegel, are actually supporting this thesis. So Rabindranath was a single one from that time in India to protest it. People doesn't know that Rabindranath joined or wrote many things. And many letters we find now that Rabindranath is talking what is very, very relevant today in this war-torn world or war-prone world. So with this, I now introduce our expert, eminently known expert, Professor Anandulal, who was in the Department of English Literature at Jadavpur University and Department of English at the University of Calcutta and the Department of Theatre at the University of Illinois from 1981 to 1986. He lectured globally, US, Canada, UK, Europe, Australia, and others. He was a Cambridge Fellow in 1994 and a Fulbright Fellow in 2005. The Voice of Rabindranath Tagore, Hindustan 1997, is a CD of the Tagore's personal audio recordings that he designed and contributed, the introduction, commentary, and translated passages for. This contribution, known as Oxford Tagore Translation, and releasing translation of Jivanananda Das, another very prolific poet of ours, and also Professor Anandulal translated Bengali poetry of Jivanananda Das. In the English department's of postgraduate curriculum at Jadavpur, he instructed the translation studies course. He has published over 40 essays in various books and journals, and the foremost Indian prominent theatre critic in India. So, like Rabindranath, Professor Anandulal has also a variety of things to his credit. So I now give the main invisible microphone to Professor Anandulal, and I hope there is no technical glitch. Thank you very much for joining us. Professor Anandulal.
Thank you so much, Professor Bose, and my greetings to everybody out there, wherever you may be. It's wonderful to be at a time when we can communicate instantaneously across the world, which is, I think, one of the few things about the contemporary times that Rabindranath Tagore would have actually appreciated, because he was most excited about human-to-human communication. And that was one of the reasons why, apart from his constant interest in travel, that was one of the reasons why he went all over the world talking and meeting people, and sometimes even persuading them to come to accompany him. All right.
All of you can hear Professor Lal clearly? Okay.
Yes, very clear. Thank you.
It's clear. Okay.
Thank you, Laura. What I'm going to be saying here today afternoon over here is not what is generally well known about.
Can I say something? Can I say something, sir? Can you use a microphone? Then the audibility will be better.
Yeah, this arrangement.
I think the technical department is saying that this is the best that they can do. Gitanjali. So
Actually, my added, then there could be vibrations. That is why they are not giving microphones.
I hope
You can raise your audio or use a earphone.
Okay, I'm trying. Okay, sir. Okay,
Whatever-
thank you, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt, ma'am.
Whatever queries you have, please write in the chat box.
there is one message which says that my voice is coming over clearly.
Okay.
And there's a second person who has also said that. So Gitanjali, maybe there is a
Trouble on her side.
better option for you to raise your volume. All right. Let me continue then. The focus of my 1 hour talk today, which is actually nothing when you think of the range of Tagore's accomplishments, his intellectual stature and contribution, which in fact, sadly, most of the world has forgotten. But I am not going to be talking about 100 years ago. I am not going to be talking about what Tagore himself quite strongly, vehemently denounced during his lifetime as imperial colonialism, because we all know about that. His works, his writings in that area, and not just words, but also his actions, because he joined various anti-colonial protests at that time, have been well documented, and his comments, his essays on these matters are known. Besides, it is not at all historically important for us today to discuss a period of human history which in name does not exist any longer. In other words, imperialism and or colonialism in a political sense internationally doesn't exist the way it used to 100 years ago. Tagore's entire lifetime, up till the time he died in 1941, occurred during a time when he was acutely conscious of the European empires that had colonized various parts of the world, as much as 3/4 of the world, in fact. Most of these former colonies are now independent. And so it is very easy for someone, for instance, in our home city, Kolkata, a quite well-respected intellectual, to say that Tagore is irrelevant. Now, this particular person, I don't have to name him, said that Tagore is irrelevant at a debate. And of course, as you all know, debates are platforms where you are allowed to argue any particular point that you wish to propose. So the irrelevance of Tagore, the relevance of Tagore is not at all true if we think of as a theatre director, I'm very acutely sensitive to these interruptions, and you will understand. Sorry about this. My point is just the opposite. How are Tagore's views, writings, and actions 100 years ago applicable today in the subject of colonialism? You see, although the so-called definition of colonialism to mean international political hegemony has vanished politically, it is actually still there in very invidious ways among us. And very often we have to actually look at ourselves within national boundaries, within the nation, and not just outside, to see how we are still colonial. So that is what I propose to do, pointing out where what Tagore has said and written actually points to what is happening today amongst us everywhere in the world, in various ways. And I propose to do this in 3 aspects. One is somewhat political, but also sociological, and obviously covers culture too. I will argue that just as Tagore has said before, cultural colonialism continues today. Secondly, in the most dangerous aspect of human activity, or shall I say, human depredation today, which will mean various forms of extinction for various kinds of human activities, and of course, as well as species, within the next 40 or 50 years. Environmentally, we are continuing human colonialism. And thirdly, economically, financial colonialism continues unabated across the world. And all these are areas that Tagore wrote about, was very aware about. I will focus at the beginning on one particular text that all of us in Bengal love, but don't quite realize or recognize the importance of today. That is a play by Rabindranath called Raktakarobi, which is normally taken to be a symbolical play. I don't think it is. Of course, yes, you can interpret it symbolically, but to me, it's very realistic. And I mentioned this purely because I mentioned this particular text, this particular play in a little bit more detail over here, purely because of 2 things. One, in Bengal, this year, 2025, we are celebrating the centenary of Raktakarobi. Now, I have to say that Bengalis are very late, as always, coming to any kind of celebration, because they don't seem to realize that Raktakarobi, the play, was first published in late 1924 in the Bengali journal Provashi, simultaneously in the English journal Vishwabharati Quarterly. In around this is the Puja special issues that come out every year, around about September in 1924, published simultaneously in Bangla and in English. Raktakarobi in Bangla, Red Oleanders in under the name of Tagore, his translation, the same year. In fact, the Bangla text in book form came out as late as 1926. So, 1925 actually doesn't have any place in Bengal's own celebrations of the play Raktakarobi. As I said, we are habitually late. to everything. I indulge in a lot of self-criticism, so do pardon me for my habits occasionally. All right. The second reason why I knew that was coming, that's why I paused. The second reason why I focus on Dr. Karavi is that Rabindranath was so distressed at the world's dismissal of this particular play, or let me put it this way, misunderstanding or non-understanding of this particular play, that he actually wrote about it himself. This is normally not done when an author has to explain his work. It means there's something happening which is obviously either gone over the heads of most readers, or they are completely unaware of the far-sighted nature of the text, so that they missed its significance completely. Let me just read out a quote from Tagore's English remarks, recorded by his friend Leonard Elmhurst in 1924 about Dr. Karavi. Just a few significant sentences. Regarding red oleanders, he writes, he says actually, and then Elmhurst transcribes it, we are not judges, we are the accused. The habit of greed for things, connect today, consumerism. I can see it around everywhere. By the way, I can also see, while coming here, Dr. Karavi plants on the road. The habit of greed for things, for power, don't we know that? For facts. At a university, we are in the profession of fact dissemination. Greed for facts, mind you, is what Tagore is talking about. With all the ramifications that greed is able to set up between man and man, is arrayed against the force of human sympathy, one against the other, human sympathy, of neighborliness, of fellowship, and of love, the force which we may term good. There is a deliberate polarity over here that Rabindranath has created and has dramatized. Good is arrayed against the dehumanizing force of mammon. Mammon, of course, means money, of selfishness, of evil. Do we not see that around us today? That's my point. Of that which separates us from our fellows, against that which cements us together, of that which, because it divides us, is untruth, is a lie. And there is perhaps no other better time in the 21st century than today, whereby we see, let the man pass. The woman has passed. The gentleman will pass again.
Sorry.
So that's all right. This happens. This divisiveness in society, in human civilization, is visible outrageously today. Whether it's in Gaza, whether it's in the Ukraine, whether it's in any other conflict-ridden zone, we are bent on fighting. Nothing has changed since Tagore wrote these words. Let me continue from that same article. The background is a world based upon the principle that each must fight the other, oppress or be oppressed, in order not merely that ordinary simple needs of life may be satisfied, not just the daily needs that we all require, but that piles of accumulation may be piles of accumulation, greed, consumerism around us. This is a world where, with every available means in his power, the king, the Raja in the play, not the Parvati, exploits the resources of the underworld. Is that not happening today? Exploits the resources of the underworld, of nature. Is that not happening today? Of the mind. Is that not happening today? Of science, technology being used for wrong purposes. Is that not happening today? And of human physique and intelligence, using all the weapons of organization, and the elaborate machinery of a highly centralized bureaucracy in order to add to wealth. This is what we face today. Wealth perpetuated, self-perpetuating through exploitation. Tagore already wrote a play about that, and elsewhere also, but I'm focusing on this particular play. In the midst of this, says Tagore, as those of you who know the play itself, the heroine, Nandini, comes in as Tagore, like a poet, puts it, flying in like the butterfly, armed with no sting, equipped with no power to gather, but clothed in beauty, loving the light of day and life, asking all to share. And then he says, I must admit, romantically, but then that's all right. There should still be space for romanticism amongst us in this world today. Toils and troubles are forgotten. Memories are aroused of the old scents and sounds, of the simple artistic color and variety of nature, of the cooperative life of the village, where all were not numbers, but neighbors, where there was music and beauty and life. But we have become numbers, with numbers on our doors, our telephones, our cars, our factories. Our phones, of course, are so important to us. Guladi knows that I don't use a mobile. I am too Ravindrik, perhaps. Our restaurants, our votes, and our tickets. And then he carries on. I skip a few parts. When men make use of men, they crush and mutilate not merely their victims, but the humanity which is in themselves. They prefer to think in terms of empire, of organization, in factory or workshop, in politics or sport, and to satisfy their craving for power or survival. There are other aspects to Dr. Parvi, Red Oleander, that are also touched upon. And this was not just the only place that Tagore spoke about his views, the reasons why he wrote this particular way. He, in fact, submitted an article to the Manchester Guardian in which Tagore pointed out that Western civilization itself was flawed in its approach to humanity, to humankind. I think we can come to this part. In this particular article, I can say on behalf of inarticulate Asia, what a terrible reality for us is the West, whose relation to ourselves is so little human. The view that we can have of her is of a titanic power with an endless curiosity to analyze and know, but without sympathy to understand. With numberless arms to coerce and acquire. And I'm thinking of right now the most powerful president in the world. With numberless arms to threaten, tariff, coerce, and acquire, but no serenity of soul to realize. It is an organized passion of greed that is stalking abroad in the name of European civilization. Such an objectified passion lacks the true majesty of human nature. It only assumes a terrifying bigness, its physiognomy blurred through its cover of an intricate network, the scientific system. It barricades itself against all direct human touch with barriers of race pride, and prestige of power. These are strong but extremely pertinent words today. Race pride, and therefore you default for those you don't want. And many other examples. In another essay, which many of us actually don't know, they should in fact read this particular essay by Robin. Now it's available in English. The title of the English translation is City and Village. It was a talk that he gave in Srinagar, in Bangla originally, but also translated into English. A small quote from that particular essay. The artificial lights of the town are ablaze. Lights that have no connection with sun, moon, or star. But the humble lamps of the village are dead. The siren of the factory lures men away from the peaceful refuge of their original community. So, Dr. Paravi brings that into its focus as well. And that is the world actually that we live in right now. It's pointless arguing that we have improved, we have progressed, because where is the progress of the mind? It is true that in certain areas, I must acknowledge that, for instance, with reference to gender, there is much greater equality. I must say, relatively speaking, greater, but not fully, right? As the women here will probably testify. Are we still equal? One of them says not really. But we have made steps. And the fact that Tagore placed Nandini, a heroine, a woman at the center, as the possible symbol of salvation, of saving, tells you a lot about his thought process as well on this matter. Now, having given you this, this backdrop with reference to that particular play, let me just go ahead to those three aspects which I had said that I would cover today in terms of what are we doing in India, which I know best of all, but I'm sure those of you who are outside can possibly apply these ideas to your own societies and nations. Politically, India is not particularly in a happy place. I don't want to go into the details of that, but what I would like to quickly point out over here is the cultural aspects of politics. Starting with one of the basics of human society, civilization, communication, language. There is a concerted effort politically in this country to push the imposition of Hindi as the national language. I have nothing against Hindi. Beautiful literature has been written in that language. But to encourage it above others is not at all correct. And this, of course, without reference to Hindi, but Tagore had referred to this in his constant affirmation and championing of the mother tongue as the medium of education. But what we are facing today is a situation where many of the languages in India, some of them much older than Hindi, are being sidelined or placed in somewhat disadvantaged positions in states outside their own home, outside those the homes of those particular languages. This, of course, is something that we should not, as a democracy, we should not tolerate. The other aspect of cultural politics is, for instance, similar things are happening in the realm of education. We now have a national education policy, NEP for short, which in a number of statements, agenda that it has, perfectly acceptable, perfectly valid, reasonable, rational, in a number, not always, not entirely. Where the problem arises is that when the NEP and its branches, which, for instance, the UGC, the University Grants Commission, part of this activity, is when you prescribe curriculum, syllabi, to be taught across the country. This is outrageous. There cannot possibly be a centralized educational system. Such educational systems are only available in nations like Russia or China or North Korea. Are we going to follow that path? Yes, true. These curricula are only suggested, are only recommended. But we know the value of those words. We know how, if you do not follow that particular curriculum, or if you don't quite figure out the ratio and proportion of the 70-30 or 80-20 numbers, to go say numbers, of what you should have on your curriculum as an individual university, as opposed to what you can yourselves choose from the outside. If you don't have that, you may not get funding. How's that? We are headed for a totalitarian situation where indoctrination obviously follows. And that is somewhere where civil society should take the matter up in order to resist such dogmatism, indoctrination, and eventually totalitarianism. As we know very well, there are ways in which you can convert, transform a democracy into Nazi fascism. This happened in the 1930s. If anybody is interested, you can see how exactly the Nazi Party democratically became the rulers of Germany. These are huge dangers. Pentagon was clearly quite aware of that. He would not have anticipated that independent India would have come to this pass. And I do hope that it does, because we cannot have one. Let me just compare. We think of the United States of America or European universities as the beacons of enlightenment. Why? Because every university reserves its own right to formulate its own curriculum, its own syllabus, and to some extent, the individual professor can do that. And the passing of by the board or studies of that particular department is merely a formality. There might be arguments about it, but the individual professor has their right and authority. Please put that off. Please put that off. You can be seen behind me. This is disrespect. If you want, you can take the ball outside. See, I mean, very unfortunately, I have this bad image of a strict disciplinarian. What can I do? I'm an individual. Allow me that freedom of speech.
You're allowed.
What happens, therefore, is a system that, in such a system, it creates clones and it perpetuates a certain agenda as well as ideology that ultimately breaks the nation down or leads it into conflict. I'm speaking in generalities, but I'm sure you will all understand what I might be referring to. As far as political colonialism, let me stop with these two examples from language in India and the educational situation in India. Moving on to the environment. This is that aspect of human life that I am very passionate about. And unfortunately, I notice all the time that, especially in India, we don't care for it. The subject of environmental studies was introduced in Indian schools only, how many, 50 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. And everybody, the kids who were taught it, tended to laugh it off. There were these extra courses at the college and university level, also related to environmental science, which were equally soft, quote unquote, soft. This has made us, India, the laughing stock of the world, because we are polluting our own land. We are killing ourselves. And I can continue with all kinds of ramifications of of how we do this. But think about it this way. Again, let me point out, I pointed out that the Rockabilly or Red Oleander, supposedly we are celebrating its centenary this year. Today is World Tiger Day. And we are so happy about it because the number of tigers in India has actually multiplied. So we should be happy on that ground because there was a time actually, about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when the numbers were so depleted that there was a fear. My friend, the late Valmik Thapar, told me that there's no hope for the tiger in India. Many years back. There was this fear that we would lose this magnificent animal. Perhaps not now if numbers are to be our guide, but then Tagore told us about numbers. What do they hide? They hide the fact, for instance, that I was reading today that in the first 4 months of this year, as many as 20 or 30 tigers were poached in India. So that continues. Poaching will continue. There will be evil around us. Let's face it, because human beings can be good, but they can equally be evil. But what bothers me no end is that the government is using these numbers as a smokescreen. The government is also telling us that forest land has increased, when actually it has not. What has increased is forested land which have been created out of plantations, and also there is some dispute about what is being regarded as forested land. How dense are those forests actually? So there's a lot of playing around with numbers. We do this all the time. We manufacture numbers to suit our projects or proposals. That is deeply troubling because we don't have that forest area in our country which is recommended by global agencies for a landscape to survive. In addition, what is happening is that in the name of development, remember what Tagore mentioned? Greed, consumerism. In the name of development, look at the nearest wetland around you. The wetlands, the East Kolkata wetlands, which is a globally recognized area, environmentally sensitive ecozone, has lost about 40% of its area in the last 30 years. Now, one of the things that this particular area actually does, even now it does, is it cleans the waste that emanates from this dirty city and uses that water for fish, for pisciculture, for fishing, which helps the price of fish to drop in the local markets. Everything is interrelated. But we are losing. Why are we losing these areas? These water lands, wetlands are being filled up by promoters. Remember what Tagore said at the very beginning? Greed. And there's an excess. Don't just blame the promoters. Blame everybody else who gains greed financially from those circumstances. And so we lose them. And then what happens? We don't care. As long as we make our short-term greed, our short-term profits, we're fine. Who cares what will happen 40 years later? That is the approach that this country is following. Because you can now easily get by NGT, which is the National Green Tribunal, permissions to de-notify zones for economic development. Economic, remember the third point that I was trying to make? Economic development. Development is a positive word, but we know what negatives come of it. I mean, I know that there are people outside India who have joined, so maybe we can just think in terms of the Amazon. And we know the debate that happened over there, the previous resident and the present resident. And they are fighting this too because in the Amazon, as everybody knows, is perhaps by far the richest storehouse of natural resources. But that's facing the threat of lumber, of huge chunks being cut down for rocket making. Now, Tagore was, of course, not aware in his lifetime that this was what the world would come to, because in his time, wildlife was abundant, trees were abundant, yet he still cultivated this love of nature in his students, in the open air classes, under the trees. He constantly spoke to them and encouraged them to present performances, which are, each of them were dedicated to individual seasons, like springtime, like the monsoons, so that the students knew that's the kind of education we are thinking of. The students knew that this was what education should be. Those of you who may want to read Tagore on this can read the essay, The Religion of the Forest. He calls it the religion of the forest. But we are more interested in other religions, aren't we? So this is what I call human colonialism. Democracy might be dying, I hope not. But in case of democracy, I advocate a term that is not that well known, but it has been used, ecocracy. Ecocracy is the recognition and action required for equal attention given to all of ecology. Enough of human beings colonizing and owning the planet to their peril. I don't need to go on about that. I'm sure you're aware of this, but if necessary, we can always talk about these issues later on. In his own work, in his own actions, Tagore, for instance, in the Institute of Rural Reconstruction that he set up in Sriniketan, Shantiniketan was the educational hub, school and university. And university, mind you, the motto was, where the world resides in a single nest. Where the world resides in a single nest means all humanity comes together in the university. Now, I always think, not that I'm a doomsday prophet or a doomsayer, but I always think that how many international students do we actually have anymore? Nice music from Hindi films, which is another kind of colonialism. What happens is sometimes it breaks my train of thought. So you understand how terrible these interruptions can be for someone who's talking. The point is that we must make sure that we are able to try and live up to what Tagore's ideals were. I was saying that the international studentship at Indian universities, even on Vishwabharati, is pathetic. So we haven't met that criteria. Yes, of course, there are some students who come, but you compare that 100 years after Vishwabharati was established, you compare that situation with universities in Europe or the United States, maybe no longer the United States anymore with what President Trump is doing to education there. But you'll understand how that's the way education should be, so that talented, intelligent students from all over the world come together and mingle, mix with you. You get to know them. That hasn't really taken off in India. But he wanted it to happen. In Srinigetan, he constantly encouraged village handicrafts, artifacts, and constantly helped them along, farmers in the villages, to make themselves self-sufficient, to continue their activities in the way that could best benefit them. Start from the bottom, not from the top. Raise their livelihoods. And this too is something that we should think about very carefully, because one wonders whether that too is happening, because as in fact, Tagore had predicted in that essay, City and Village, the people are leaving, most people are leaving villages for the cities because they can get better employment in cities. And so the cities are becoming that old cliche, the urban jungle. Violent, cutthroat, dog eat dog. And the villages are fading away. And there might come a time where agriculture, therefore, in India, which is of course coming from the villages, could find itself in trouble. If you cannot sustain that activity, you will have to import. And how much will that cost you? The third point, economics. Nobody's thinking that far ahead. I didn't mention one point with reference to the National Green Tribunal permissions. Now, in terms of roadway communication, ease and facility of access, the faster you get from point A to point B, the better in this country. The government in Delhi is allowing 6-lane highways to cut through what is considered to be wilderness or forest, or even quote unquote wasteland, that's what they call it. And every day in the newspapers, if anybody reads newspapers anymore, you might find that elephants have been mown down. A tigress and her 3 or 4 cubs were run over. This is what I mean. Now, what price development? All right, tigress and her cubs are expendable. They can die, the human race can live. Trees can go. We want to go faster from point A to point B. In what? In our SUVs. The proven method of wasteful vehicles worldwide. The sports utility vehicle. And the point one chosen option for anyone wanting to buy a new car in India. That's where it is. No, we don't want Maruti 800 anymore. They're too small. We are powerful. We need an SUV. Like the Bollywood stars use. Isn't that our role model? These are things that Tagore wouldn't have predicted in terms of SUVs or these highway killing machines. But essentially, he knew what was happening there. And those same points I'm extracting and placing before you today. In case you think that I'm to be. Let me go
Or
back.
you are going back.
I am?
Some might argue, I don't know,
Yes.
that you're going back and you are actually propagating short-term situations which eventually developed in small capitalism, but will not go anywhere.
Yeah, of course.
Or if you are saying this, then the whole issue of digital divide is opened.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Certainly. We can always talk about that later on, but I'm going back, not in the way Bloody has suggested.
Okay, no, I
I'm going
understand
back-
what you're doing,
No, no.
I'm just saying some people think.
Of course, of course. I'm going back to Rabindra Tagore. Tagore felt that his songs would last. Everything else might disappear, but his Rabindra Sangit would be his permanent contribution to humanity. Now, I'm not going to argue that for better or for worse, but what I'm going to point out is just two very important songs where what I had referred to by way of divisive humanity. Tagore obviously did not believe in that. And the two examples I will take and I will translate, I will read out from my own translations of these, the original Bangla. All of you know here, A. More Tikto, very famous spiritual, patriotic, humanist poem that Tagore wrote in poem and song, in fact, from in 1910. I think I'll read out.
No, take your time, don't you laugh.
Yeah, I just looking at the
Yeah, what?
the watch.
That is the
just see where I am.
official one. Okay. Please take your time.
This is the first stanza. This is in my English translation, nowhere near the word original. O my consciousness, awake gently in pilgrim purity on this seashore of India's great humanity. Standing here, I bow to man's gods, both arms outstretched. In noble rhythms, supreme joy, I hymn their praise. These mountains, Dhyana deep, wildernesses holding river rosaries. Here the sacred earth forever see on this seashore of India's great humanity. You see, the humanity is together with the mountains, the rivers, the sacred earth, the wildernesses. Not different, not superior. And then, second stanza. No one knows whose call made streams of so many populations come from where on turbulent currents, lose themselves in an ocean. Here, now notice these names. Here, Aryans. Here, non-Aryans. Here, Dravidians, Chinese, Shakas, Huns, Pathans, Mughals, dissolved in one body. In one body. That is about half the original. I skip to the third stanza, where the first three lines go as follows. Come, O Aryans, come, non-Aryans, Hindus, Muslims, come today, come English, come Christians, come Brahmins, cleanse the mind, hold the hands of everyone. That is the word. Everyone is equal. And following this, soon after, he wrote, these were post-Bengal partition times. So he was very kind of upset by what the British Raj was attempting at that time. This was around about the same time that he actually wrote it. But this, of course, is, everyone here knows it, the Indian national anthem. I'm not going to sing it for you because then everyone over here will have to stand up. But most Indians do not know that the original has 5 stanzas. Only the first is typically sung. And the first is also geographically quite broad. The second stanza, I read out again from my translation, forgive my injustice to the original. Second stanza. Daily we hear the noble words of your calls proclaimed. Now, who is this you? It's a Vidhata, right? It is the director of Bharat's destiny. Daily we hear the noble words of your calls proclaimed. Hindu, Buddhist, Sikh, Jain, Parsi, Muslim, Christian, East and West come to your throne's side, threading a garland of love. Victory to the enactor of the people's unity, director of Bharat's destiny. And that's why you'll understand why this was chosen as India's national anthem. And if you just compare Hemotito with second stanza of Jana Gana Mano, you will immediately realize that Tagore deliberately has added 4 religions to those he had named in Hemotito. Even more equal, even more democratic. I think we can pause here because whether it's his songs or whether it's a particular play that from which I actually quoted at length, or whether it is, for instance, another extremely prophetic play, Muktadhara, which I may as well mention here because again, few people know about it. In Muktadhara, the hero realizes that a dam being erected in the hills, region unnamed in terms of unrecognizable, so that the kingdom in the upper regions of that river can benefit from the water that is stored in the dam and deny water to the people in the kingdom downstream. Now, this is Tagore writing more than 100 years ago. Nobody had written at that time about dams, the dangers of dams. In fact, it has always been a mystery to me. Where did Rabindranath get this idea of a dam being dangerous? Not the dam itself being dangerous, perhaps, but the fact that, again, politically, those power-hungry people who want to use it can destroy the lives of others downriver. And so Tagore's hero breaks this dam. His own self-sacrifice. He dies in the attempt. And this is extremely interesting because, as we all know, we have scientists amidst us today. It is predicted that major wars will be around in future over water. Water wars. Whether it's China damming the Brahmaputra, the geological nature of that is still a little kind of contentious. I don't want to, if you want to ask me, I can always talk about it, but that would be sidetracking immediately. Or suddenly India decides that we will stop the waters of the Indus and its tributaries flowing into Pakistan. That is reminding me of Bukhara. Now, can you deny human beings on the other side their right to water? Just because you will use it as a weapon, you are weaponizing water. Haven't we learned anything from we being Indians, from our own spiritual preceptors or philosophers? But we do this within the country as well. And of course, there's India and Pakistan over here, there's India and Bangladesh with the Farakka barrage. Some of you are probably aware of that because there's an argument about how much should be given to, allowed to flow into Bangladesh. But even within the country, the Kaveri waters dispute between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. So this is not very happy. Surely Tagore had not dreamt of this situation, but he has written about exactly that situation developed.
Narmada Bachao Andolon.
Sorry?
Narmada.
No.
The whole movement.
That's
No,
done.
Tagore's prophecy. I'm saying Tagore actually understood this will happen and happened.
Not just that, since you mentioned the Narmada, I'm aware of the Narmada Bachao Andolon, at which a theatre group performed Mukta Bharat.
Right.
The theatre group from Delhi performed Mukta Bharat. But anyways.
Rabindranath is Indian.
So there are many other and not the obvious ones. There's obviously this brilliant novel which we all know, Bora, which is the obvious, if you're talking about colonialism, which is the obvious example of how Tagore felt about colonialism, because here is this Hindu pride man, protagonist in Bora, the novel, which then transpires, what wonderful irony, that he always thought that he was born in a family that goes back generations to a very staunch Hindu past. And it turns out that he was an orphan. He was British, he was Irish, and he was raised as an compels him to revise all of his orthodox beliefs. So that's an obvious anti-colonial statement from Tagore, but I didn't want to enter those. Those are fairly well known. I think Professor Bose, I have done with the common part also. And did I say Bose before as well?
No, just no. And before.
My mistake.
But it didn't matter to me whether he called me Bose or called me,
No, you
or
were,
even Thakur, doesn't matter.
you were most polite, therefore you were bothered.
No, sir, I'm being honest. I'm being honest, just not order, that's all. I'm being just honest.
Apologies.
I would say go ahead, but I would ask the audience to give us questions on the chat box. We requested questions in the chat box so that we can take one by one. Nobody has written in the chat box. So is there any question? I will ask all the questions. I have lots of questions. So anybody from the audience? Anybody from the virtual audience? I guess Laura, you have a question? Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Actually, it's more like a comment, because I didn't really know about, this incredible value of Rabindranath Thakur. I will call him Thakur. Thank you. Thank you, Bula, Professor Bula Badra, for organizing this seminar and for also decolonizing names, because it's not an optional something superfluous, something. Names are important. They're not just describing reality. They do construct reality. So in the moment when we start decolonizing names, that's so important. So thank you, Bula, and thanks to Anand for this beautiful seminar. The concept of greed, I think it's central in any discourse, any discursive practice for decolonization. So greed, divisiveness, it's the white man political praxis, the one of dividing, divide and rule, right? It's the colonialist, imperial gaze, divide and rule. So the divisiveness today that brings, all the problems, wars, and environmental disasters, which actually are man-made disasters because of greed, because of taking more from Mother Nature than it is to be done. This fighting, all this war, Gaza, Ukraine, and many, many more. This use of technology, as you pointed out, for wrong ends. The use of brains, young people, enthusiasm in science and technology, then it gets manipulated into war, into forms of oppression, into strengthening inequalities and sufferance. So the love for people and nature, I think, is a solution in itself. And we just had in Rabat, Morocco, we just had 7,000 sociologists, many, many women, who decided to write a statement for Palestine and against Israeli colonialism, which is a very pernicious type of colonialism. And we had a special panel on social love, where I also gave a contribution about my studies of a work by Abdullah Öcalan, leader of the Kurdish people, who wrote Sociology of Freedom. This book, Sociology of Freedom, is really very interesting, also from a gender, decolonial, intersectional perspective. And the idea of a real democracy, of a direct democracy, which has always existed. Before fake democracy, we had real democracy. Before, representative democracy, which often is hypocrisy, we had the real one, the forest religion of democracy, the indigenous way of. So just a proposal to keep on going in decolonizing words. And I would propose also to decolonize the word development, because it is development itself as a concept. It is an inferiorizing term used for people, countries, societies considered to be underdeveloped from the modernist, enlightenment, white man science. So let's stop using these terms that are, colonial and don't help us in delinking from colonialism. Thank you.
Thank you. Bring the book when you're coming to India for me as a gift. You'll be coming in December, so bring the book. You're coming to SR, Kerala, right?
Yeah, I can probably December or January, it depends. It depends, but I hope to come in January.
Okay.
Sorry, I hope to come in December. I cannot hear.
No, somebody else is talking, that's why.
Okay, so I hope to be able to come in December and to give a seminar also on sociology of freedom. The book is available online, also in as an ebook.
Fine. Okay, good. Okay. Thank you.
Hello,
Hello, yes, who is speaking, please?
this is S.S. Bhattacharya.
Go ahead, your question.
My question is, because Professor Lal, it was a very good speech. I appreciate, but only thing I would like to know, what is the definition he would like to give for a mother tongue? Because he has referred the mother tongue. Now, mother tongue is having so many things to be taken care of. Otherwise, simply mother tongue spoken by the mother is not going to solve the issue. Please.
Yeah. Yes, actually, see, I'm not particularly interested in definitions. Definitions create problems because the minute you define, you are categorizing and compartmentalizing. So I've always avoided the nature of definitions. By mother tongue, when I spoke about mother tongue, I really meant the language that the child picks up at home, in the family, not necessarily what the mother speaks. And therefore, that is known to them, and that might actually, I mean, as you know very well, India is home to over 1,000 languages. Many of them are dying. And so the languages, like we talk about zoological, botanical species going on the verge of extinction, those are the ones that also need to be helped, supported by the state, so that we don't lose the worth, the values embedded in those languages, wherever those languages in India they may be or elsewhere in the world. So mother tongue for me is just a general word by which I'm talking about let's invest in the local languages as opposed to trying to impose one particular national language which immediately becomes hegemonic.
Now, to me, to my mind, what my ready reaction would be that as per 2011 census, there are some 1369 mother tongues in India.
Correct.
Out of that, UNESCO has defined 197 are the endangered languages. Some
Yes.
are already extinct. Now, that is why, in case of mixed marriage, what is going on around the country, now what exactly is the language of the mother tongue to be defined? Because of the mixed marriage, because of intergroup marriage, because of intertribal marriage, now mother tongue becomes a little problem. The other definition which is available in the world is language spoken usually at home.
May I
Okay,
just quickly
Professor Lal is replying to you because we have other people asking questions.
may I just quickly reply because I find this idea of mixed marriages deeply problematic. Are you suggesting that there were no mixed marriages before?
What is mixed marriage?
We have had mixed marriages for 3,000 years.
There is no tribal.
And they have always been mixed. So let's not get into another can of worms opening that up, because that's not the concern over here. The concern is really let us try and save all languages that do exist in the nation, regardless of whether it is the product of a mixed marriage or not. Not the point.
No, but only thing, sir, I have final submission that mother tongue education means many things. Local, you are telling how local. Say, going to the northeast.
Local and global later on, and then you can ask this question because there will be a lot to say. In the special lecture series, we have local and global. So let others ask the questions.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Okay, no. how local I was thinking to be defined. Anyway, thank you.
We are not giving definition, sir. Definition is your prerogative. Definition is diversified, dynamic, and always changing. Like
Okay.
the one I do not know about mixed marriages because they are not made in the heaven, I guess. But mixed marriages has different connotations. So let us not discuss this very important issue right now because our purpose is Rabindranath's idea of anti-colonialism and its applications today.
Okay.
I think
Thank you.
there are questions here. Thank you.
It's not the question. It's regarding the first part of the it is regarding the first part of the talk, that is rock topology. Don't you think that rock topology explain a broader philosophy of life in the sense, in its own word, when Hegel says, iron that remains under the earth, it has got mass but no life. A small rock topology remains on the surface of the earth. It has got no mass. It has got life. But what life is, as we all know, Upanishad has tremendous influence on the growth of Tagore's, probably when he was young, and with his father, he visited Himalayas. From there itself, he started digesting Upanishad. Now, there is a very interesting small quote. Our Indian civilization, if we assume that it started with Vedas, if you look in Vedas, it is based on many rituals, and all the rituals are based on lust. I want to be the highest king of the world, so I do Rajshwa Yoga. I want to be the highest heroes, so I do the Ashwamedha Yoga.
You're referring to only some rituals, not all.
Just one. But at the end terminal slokas of Dishad Yoga, Sri Krishna, whoever it may be, you may call him God or whatever it may be, because the last sloka is important for me. He is teaching Arjuna by saying, Nistroigunno Bhavarjuna, come out of lust. Shakto Tomo Rajo, come out of lust. Now come to Raptavaravi. In the first part, whenever we see in Raptavaravi, to Nandini, the Raja is saying, নন্দিনী আমি এক মরুভূমিকে দেখেছিলাম শ্যামলের দিকে প্রসারিত হচ্ছিল কিন্তু সে শ্যামলের নাগাল কোনো দিক পায়নি মরুভূমি প্রসারিত হচ্ছে Now go to Hibbert lecture delivered by Tagore in Oxford, where he is telling the episode of Raja Prabhavan. There, Raja Prabhavan telling, O Adha Veda, Kuto Vajata, Kuto Yam Srishti. There also he is telling, life is actually moving, something which is moving, prabhavita. Now, what is the motive force? Is it lustless? No. It is lustful, but that lust should not be converted. Consumers. নিজেকে জানা, আপনাকেই জানা আমার পুরাতন. In the saying of Decolonial. What is mean? In Indian philosophy, there is another very happening book, very small book, but it's happening book. Name is Drishya Vivek, Radhandevi's Vakushula. There, they are pointing some experiments by which you can convert your lust to know yourself. I think in the entire episode, the entire play of Roktokorbi, when at the end of Roktokorbi, Yokuraja is telling that I'm Bhenge Pheri Amar Dhwaja, to be, etc., etc., the conversion is taking place. I think that is the better philosophy of Roktokorbi, which is very important for me.
Sure. I think your main point refers to lust. And if you, what I was quoting from Tagore, use the word greed, whether you want to equate greed with lust or no, is entirely your decision. But that's fine for me. And it is true that at the end of the play, Raja realizes that he has been on the wrong track.
Transformation is taking place.
Yeah, within him has taken place.
Yes.
Has taken place, and therefore he goes out to fight, and he will die. It's understood that he is not going to survive. So that's fine. As far as the your focus on us is concerned.
And then second
Now, let me just see. It would be wrong to consider. Sorry. It would be wrong. This is lust. This is pure lust. Therefore, I pass. Right?
Some people might see it's hunger.
No,
No. Okay.
you go to Gaza and then you will talk about hunger.
Okay.
Right? That's not. No, because when you use a word, you have to be very
In the
precise,
context.
extremely precise. You cannot by any means argue that the Vedas only focus on us.
No, I'm not talking about.
You were going in that direction.
No.
So there are certain rituals there that which might pertain to lust or this desire. By the way, that's still another word for desire, a kind of superior to desire, which is a generally weaker word. But desire is something that not just the Vedas, if you go to the Buddha, if you go to many others, they will teach you that this is not to be required. And so Rabindranath knew his Buddhism also very well. So he's following that direction. It's just that the Upanishads have much more. The Vedas also have equally much more. In fact, the Vedic religion is a very religion, if you want to call it, is the nature-based one. So that's what strikes me as. Yes, go ahead. You were saying something.
The second part, very interesting, as you mentioned, that some people mostly know that Raktopal is symbolic, like actual reality.
I know minority.
I got the same info from Hum.
Yeah,
He wrote a book on named Sanmarga Saparda. That when Bohurupi started teaching Bhaktopalavi, when they start first reading these things, particularly the dialogue of Fagula, all these things, they found that these are our daily life lessons.
Yes.
So the same thing is experienced by Bohurupi and Chanmuni.
Absolutely.
While they were preparing stage.
Yes, but why just Bohurupi? Let me tell you, since we're talking about it. By the way, everything is all over Twitter. Where I've deeply researched Dr. Parvati. One of my most profound experiences of watching Dr. Parvati on stage has been with the Baharampur prison theatre, where the inmates of the now we call them correctional home, they perform Dr. Parvati. And I have never seen such a powerful play because in immediately recognize. You know the play, so you know exactly how that's going to turn out. If this population of correctional home inmates performs it, what the information can possibly be. And there was absolutely no, a lot of people have said this language is the worst language. It's too high flown, too poetic in terms of Raghavati. Impossible for normal, ordinary people to speak. I didn't find that at all with the Baharampur production. Their delivery was so
This
normal.
otherwise the highly colonized impact of that.
Exactly.
Absolutely
So,
colonized.
I'm just giving you an example of how the play can work in many different contexts. There has even been a mime version of Dr. Parvati, which also worked very well. Badal Sarkar stripped Dr. Parvati, did it in his third theatre. So there are many ways of interpretation.
So,
Sir, you have no questions. Was it that?
Yeah, just another issue of colonizing. I mean, the issue of technology, you have technology as well. I mean, possibly that's an issue on which Tagore differed with Gandhi.
Yeah.
Basically, Gandhi was going back to the old traditional, whereas he was more modern, moved into technology. But did he not realize that technology could also be an instrument of colonization? The modern technology, what it is doing. But is there any indication because he was for technology.
Yeah.
So what would have been his stand in this position?
Correct. He was, you see, I mean, let's face facts. Rabindranath was extremely conflicted by many things. So very often you will actually find something in one writing of his which contradicts something in somewhere else. But he was always forward looking. That's why he thought that technology can be used positively. True. But then he has also written, for instance, if you read his essay, which I didn't mention, The Modern Age, or another essay, East and West. These are in English, so they're more readily available. Both these essays are in the book Creative Unit. Creative. He discusses the growth and growth. So that's extremely interesting. While he's talking about why do we have to pay through checks with bank accounts, why can't we just meet the other human being and pay them in cash, which we won't think of today. That is very backward looking, right? He's thinking from a humanistic point of view, that we need the human to human face, which we are losing out on because our Moody's dokans on the corner streets are closing down, because everything can be delivered at home. At the same time, he is saying that there are benefits to what the British have brought down in terms of modernity rather than they have stressed in many ways. One of the reasons why he withdrew from the freedom movement, so-called freedom movement, is just this, that we're talking about Gandhi. Gandhi was kind of, committed to one ideology, absolutely pure and simple.
But he criticized the going back to Charka. I mean,
Yes.
that is
Yeah.
that is not acceptable at all.
Yes.
But going to the modern technology,
Yeah.
what the damages the modern technology could do,
Yeah.
possibly Tagore was not quite aware of.
I think, he knew enough about it. Modern technology has been found in, for instance, a city like Kolkata at that time. He hated the city. And he went to Shantiniketan. One of the reasons is that he felt more at home there rather than this urban mess that is Kolkata. And there, to talk about technology, he tells his son, Rabindranath, to go and study agriculture. Where does he go and study agriculture? At the University of Illinois, in the middle of nowhere in the American Midwest. Why? Because that university specialized in the state-of-the-art technological advances in agricultural sciences, so that Rabindranath could bring those back and then help.
Also the war technology being very destructive was certainly spoken against by Tagore. So he
In Crisis in Civilization.
he is talking about that because the modern warfare that he was seeing was based on technology, and that kind of technology was abhorrent to him. So that way, he was aware of all these issues. But as
In the point
says,
Africa.
then there would be different contextual positions in which you be presenting his ideas limited to that context, and hence might seem contradictory to us when we take them out of those contexts.
In the poem Africa, he mentions the bomb.
Here, they
The
have.
bombing in it. Beautiful point. Suddenly out of nowhere, the bombs. Right.
Prabhupada Chakraborty.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, please. Thank you very much. Can I be heard?
Yeah, you can ask questions to Salal.
Yeah. Just a comment. You spoke at length about Rakta Korobi. I think one more play that deserves to be considered is Mukta Dhara, where the conflict between introduction of technology and the role of the state comes in. I suppose these two, one should return to a discussion where we combine these two. That's one. And again, about the destructive role of technology when it is the hands of uh, colonialists, I find the most poignant reference that Tagore has given is in the first chapter of Paroshe. I wonder someday we can return to these ideas. Thank you very much for your presentation and elucidation of so many latent ideas. Thank you very much, please.
Thank you very much for your question. Someday we will believe that you will give us that particular one.
I hope so. And since you have asked about me, my
Yes.
family is multilingual. I will return to the question of languages someday.
Multilinguality is always adored. So it doesn't matter.
Yes, thank you, please.
Whatever
Thank you,
language
thank you.
Right for us.
Just
Thank you, please.
I mentioned Muktudar. Maybe you missed that bit. So I mentioned
For some time we discussed. Anyway, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I guess then.
Ma'am, can I intervene?
May I know what?
I am Dr. Amrita Dey.
Please be brief because you joined on behalf of the way. So don't
Yeah,
ask
I was
not
really.
there.
I
Please
have
ask
only one.
question or comment with what you have heard. Please.
Okay, ma'am. So I don't ask anything.
Go ahead.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
What I said is
Sir,
what
I-
you have heard. Whatever you heard, ask on that. Because
Okay, sir.
prior to
Okay,
that,
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Definitely true.
Professor Anandulal talked about 30 minutes. After that, you joined.
I just the question after I heard him.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. It was wonderful. Thank you, Bulabhadra ma'am, for giving me a chance to be a part of this conference online. So what I want to ask you, amidst all the binaries that we are talking about, you're talking about, conflict and peace, like Laura was, putting up those points very nicely. We are talking about, gender, like he and she, us versus them. We are talking about human and machines. I just have one point to ask you. So where do you see the future of humanity, keeping Tagore in the backdrop?
You're asking me to prophesy
Well, can you just throw a little bit of light on what do you think about humanity? Where are we heading towards with all the binaries and of course with the philosophers, mainly Tagore in the backdrop?
Don't ask me. Nobody follows me. I'm not on Facebook.
I did follow your presentation, sir, thoroughly.
No, but
I was a little late, but I followed it thoroughly.
Please make sure that do not ask anyone what is the future of humanity. You are the future of humanity.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Anyone. You find your own answer.
Thank you, sir.
There's somebody prompting you from the right.
Amrita, are you satisfied?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Chandni, you have a one? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So maybe this is linked to what Amrita just mentioned. I was taking a look at Monojit Mondo's article today. Yeah, 2022, he wrote an article on
Decolonization.
So when he's talking about how Tagore refers to the power of imagination as to kind of work against ruling forces. And not very well.
No.
Because through an array of issues and while listening to you, sir, I was very hopeful. It might kind of help me to remain hopeful that probably there's an array of light there. So the thing is, I was wondering, where Tagore also speaks a lot about universal values and internationalism. So in 21st century, so many young people amongst us here. So what how should we perceive internationalism when you're also mentioning about totalitarian regimes all around the world? Should we think of internationalism as a measure to counter such totalitarian forces when we should be thinking of ourselves as world citizens, going beyond borders where
Before Professor Anandullah gives his specialist reply, let me give you a dilettante reply. All of us should read Tagore on childhood. How to actually rear a child and how to see child as an individual. That's my dilettante position. Just read the book. That's all.
So, you were asking. See, I mean, I myself, personally speaking, am very conflicted here because, I mean, there is no comparison, but Rabindranath had this one point in his life when he questioned his belief. He was a very believing person, someone who had faith in a supreme God or whatever you want to call it. That was, we just referred to his lecture, Crisis in Civilization, when it was apparent, early years of the Second World War, that things are not looking good at all for the future of the human race. Right now, if you ask me, I don't see much difference because of what powerful people are allowing to happen. Yeah, there is easily, I mean, all you have to do is to use the word that a certain powerful person used, cards, show your cards. And all you have to show your trump card, I'm deliberately funny, trump card, just stop the starvation and bloodshed now. They're not doing it. They're thinking of monetary gains, trade. So, you know, that is a very scary situation to be in. Now, hopefully, one always, as an optimist, without any faith, one can say that we'll come out of it. But in that time, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, very small. May not be bleak as long as you out there and each in your own way do the best you can to stop things that should not be happening. And that is as little as, you know, stopping someone from throwing trash, stopping someone from smoking while you were together, which we still do regardless. Doesn't matter that you're killing the other person, doesn't matter. I have the freedom to smoke. France has banned it, but Indians will carry on.
No, India has banned it,
No.
but the Indians will
Only-
carry it out.
Yeah.
Carry
Indians
it out.
haven't banned it. They have given the, I know, I
Yes.
follow.
Smokers to
One
know
of my
that.
lectures to JU is smoke. Because everywhere there is no smoking on campus, in front of the signboard, they're smoking. What does this mean? That you do not actually, you don't have any faith in the Supreme Court. You don't care two hoots for the Supreme Court of your own country. Can we do something about this? Inculcate this.
I don't think it is a generational issue. It's an issue for everybody. You are thinking in terms of ageism. I mean, if somebody is 70 years old, wisdom, not 17, I don't think that has any one-to-one ratio at all. Rather a reverse one. Some people are more understanding at the age of 17. and some people are still not understanding at the 77. So I'll
Every
go by.
little thing
Yeah.
that you can do that is
Every little
positive
thing, yeah.
will, it's like the butterfly effect which you know of. Hopefully, will be good for the future.
One such effort was at the Rabat conference recently of the International Sociological Association. So Laura was also mentioning, where a group of sociologists from different parts of the world, and they came together to make an agenda on the Palestine issue. And there is a forum now, it's now called the Global Sociologist Forum. I invite everyone to, visit the website, become members, and there's an.
You are actually propagating them for International Sociological Association. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just say God.
Concept.
It's for everyone.
But in order to be expressing yourself, you have to be member of the association to give your concept. That's the problem part for us.
No, but these are like,
You have to. Thank you very much.
small initiatives then taken by different fields, how to kind of come up with more sensitive and humane responses.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Are we done?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are leaving, I guess everybody has, those who are still present, is satisfied with the questions, answer, etc.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting. The whole series was very good, and this speech by Anand Lal was really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We are leaving by our next, just a minute, our next lecture is on 19th of August. And on Palestinian, from Palestinian Gaza, one professor is coming and he'll be talking about decolonizing the canon, the particular terminology. So we will notify certainly. These are 19th of
Thank
August.
you.
আমাদের একটা গ্রুপ ফটো করে রাখি যারা আসেন দিবেনি তাও রবীন্দ্রনাথ শুনতে 25 জন এসেছিল প্রথম থেকে নয়
এসেছিল এটাই তো পজিটিভ
ছিল
glass should be looked at half filled rather than
yeah, I know, half empty or half full, that is the question.
should you listen to it for